and welcome to HOA Fight Club. I'm Raylene Schifano, and I am making these videos to help consumers find their way through the HOA and condo nightmares that happen to us. Today I'd like to talk about what happened when I confronted my board. So when I first started confronting the board, members weren't allowed to go to the board meetings. So I had to find somewhere in our CC&Rs that stated that members could attend the board meetings because the state laws did not address this. I also did fight for legislation now in 2019. The RCW Code 6490 now allows for homeowners to attend all meetings. They have to be given notice of all meetings and the agenda of all meetings. So that was something that I really fought for in legislation, and it was put in the RCW Code 6490. So if you're not allowed to go to your board meetings, that's something that you should really push for, because that is the place that those board members are truthful, or supposed to be truthful, and give the agenda for the property and what is going on with your stuff. That is where they decide everything, and they have to vote on everything in front of you. This is a good place to find out if how each member of the board is making decisions. All the board might be deciding one way, and there might be one member that's deciding an opposite way that you don't agree with. That's a board member that you're probably going to want to vote out when you can. So those are things that you want to know, who and how is voting which way. The next thing, when I did do that, address the board, the first thing that they did for me was give us a fine. They fined my husband for smoking in the garage. Well, the garage is ours and we own it, so of course I asked for a due process hearing. And in that process, I asked all the neighbors that I knew to come to that meeting with us. Well, of course, that wasn't received very well by the board. When all the neighbors and I walked in, the first thing they did was say that the board meeting was, or that due process hearing was canceled. So all the members of the homeowners got up and we went to walk out, and they called us back in, and the board president was seething. She was very furious. She looked at me and said, "You are a waste of time and you deserve to be fined," and didn't listen to a word anybody had to say. That is what is wrong with boards. They are emotionally attached. They are inexperienced volunteers that have no idea what they're doing. They don't know how to run a government. They shouldn't be running a government because it's not their responsibility. It is the responsibility of the municipality to run the government. So then after that meeting, we had the recall, because the homeowners were not happy with what happened at that meeting. So we had to get 26 signatures to form a recall. Getting the recall meeting was hard to call also, because in that process of the laws, there's no set timeline. So that was another thing we got put into the new RCW 6490, is that they had to call the meeting within 30 days. So there's little things that you really need to push for in the laws to make sure that they help cover homeowners. So when I testified for legislation and worked on legislation, that was another thing I wanted to have added. So then we had the recall. The recall was very interesting. First of all, they have proxies. So of course you know how that works. Well, we went into the recall, almost 80% of the homeowners showed. Well, one thing you don't get to see is those proxies and those votes. The recall was pretty tough for us. They had a police officer there to handle me and my attorney. They wouldn't let me speak. They wouldn't let any of the homeowners have any more time than a couple of minutes to speak. They were cutting us off, and they just pretty much ended the meeting. And then they had the vote, which of course none of us got to see the vote. So with their proxies, of course, they won their recall. And guess what they did that night? They voted to fine the Schifanos. They voted to fine the Schifanos for Steve, my husband, for smoking in our backyard. Well, that's a limited common area, so yes, they can fine us for smoking in our backyard. Unfortunately for the board, we were in Utah at the time of the violation. So then we came to that. Then we had to deal with that issue. And that's something that you guys want to think about. So every time a board finds someone, guess what? It costs you money. Because if you're paying for a collection agency or an attorney to go after those fines that the board wants to go after, if that homeowner doesn't pay that bill, guess who pays for those attorneys? You do. So let's talk about how much the board paid for attorneys. This is a Rogue board. Now, this board was in here for a long time, since our home was built in 1993, and that board had served since the time that they had purchased their homes, for over 20 years. So the amount for attorney fees in 2014 was $38,000. 2015 was $26,000, and 2016 was $28,000. We didn't even have that many people past due on their accounts. So we were paying more to fine people than we were to pay for ourselves being past due. So our community was more into putting people into foreclosure than we were just worrying about people that weren't paying their assessments. So my opinion on assessments is that they should come out of escrow or with our taxes, because then a Rogue board wouldn't have any control of our finances. They would have to go through the proper channels. Would you want your mortgage company to be able to fine you for any reason? How about just Joe Schmo off the street? They have just as much right to fine us as a board does, because the Constitution is on our side, not on the board side or the legislator's side. The legislators need to learn how to read the Constitution and enforce it accordingly. So those are the things you need to think about when you're approaching your board. If you're going to confront them, realize that after you confront them, you're never going to get on that board. Not unless you have a majority of the homeowners. I know we all want to fight them head on. I did. I fought them head on. Unfortunately, fighting them head on only hurt me in the long run. It didn't hurt the neighbors as much. I took the brunt of it. And yes, our neighborhood now is hopefully on the right track. I have left our neighborhood, but my last dealing with that neighborhood was leaving it in the hands of good people, hopefully, that will run it the right way. Whether they do or not, that's not up to me anymore. But I've left the knowledge with the people that are left there. Now, I was there for a long time and supported those people and defended those people. And they were really upset when I left. It was really, really hard on a lot of them. A lot of them are seniors and they don't know how to defend themselves. But I will be there for them in by email or by phone or by proxy. I will be their proxy. So I will always be around, and we need to stand up and defend each other accordingly. So I hope you guys will learn from these videos, and if you have any questions or comments, you're always welcome to call me or to email me at hoafightclub@gmail.com. I hope to see you on the next one.